While on a foraging excursion during the 1916 to 1917 Punitive Expedition, Second Lieutenant George S. Patton exceeded his orders in a risky, opportunistic and mad dash to confront the right-hand man of the mad outlaw Pancho Villa in the U.S. Army's first-ever automobile assault. Stay tuned to hear Patton's first-hand account of his first taste of combat and see why he believed that
a good plan, violently executed now, is better than a perfect plan next week.
In January 1916, amidst the chaos of the Mexican Revolution, the renegade Francisco Pancho Villa executed 17 American citizens in the Mexican town of Santa Isabel. On March 9th, in apparent and continued resentment that U.S. President Woodrow Wilson would not support him, Villa crossed the border with about 500 guerrillas to raid Columbus, New Mexico. En route, his force stopped to rape, murder and kidnap American civilians. At his raid on Columbus, he fought with civilian residents and soldiers of the nearby 13th Cavalry. 14 American soldiers and multiple civilians were killed in the raid, while casualties among Villa's forces were significantly higher, at least 100 dead. In response to the Columbus outrage, President Wilson ordered Brigadier General John "Blackjack" Pershing to conduct a punitive expedition into Mexico with the object of capturing or killing Pancho Villa. During the expedition, Second Lieutenant Patton would command a small group of soldiers, guided by able, skullduggerous scouts, in what would become the U.S. Army's first automobile assault. Welcome to the shadows and the past, where history meets mystery, and the past is your present. Hit the like and subscribe to join us as we delve into a world where the boundaries between survival and demise are as unpredictable as the winds that whip across the desolate landscapes of Mexico's magnificent Sierra Madres. Blackjack Pershing, who would later serve as the commander of the American Expeditionary Forces on the Western Front in World War I, was a disciplined, innovative military leader who valued physical readiness and grit and was a venerable man of the ladies. As Pershing prepared to confront the murderous Villa and his guerrilla thugs, Second Lieutenant George Patton, who in later life would achieve some measure of grand military success, was green around the gills and chomping at the bit, languishing at Fort Bliss, Texas. He spent his time hunting jackrabbits with pistols, debating the relative merits of straight versus curved cavalry sabers for the future of war, and lamenting the obesity of the commander of Patton's dashing regiment, the 8th Cavalry. Due to the physical rigors of the coming campaign, Pershing excluded the 8th Cavalry from his planned expedition, leading Second Lieutenant Patton to declare,
"There should be a law killing fat colonels on sight."
Subsequently, Patton set about achieving his end of getting into the mayhemic mix. The evening after receiving what he perceived to be a tepid maybe out of Pershing after requesting to be transferred to a deploying unit, the supremely self-confident second lieutenant went to Pershing's quarters, unannounced, and demanded real consideration for transfer to be the general's personal aide during the expedition. Following a tense exchange in which the impetuous Patton indicated that he wanted the opportunity more than any other officer, Pershing coldly refused to offer his support to Patton and dismissed him for the evening. The following morning, Patton received a call from Pershing inquiring as to how quickly he could pack, were Pershing to select him. Patton responded unhesitatingly that he was already packed and ready to depart now. Pershing finally relented.
"I'll be goddamned. You're an appointed aide."
Incidentally, during this period, Patton's 29-year-old sister Nita was staying with him and his wife, and there appeared to be a sort of flirtation developing between the young, supple, elegant Amazonian blonde and the 55-year-old, powerful, wise widower Blackjack Pershing. While a stinging passion did eventually develop between the two, it was put on hiatus as the general pursued his renegade nemesis, Pancho Villa, his young lover's brash, enterprising brother being brought along as aide-de-camp to, perhaps, one of America's best fighting generals. Although an eventual engagement between the odd, interesting couple did fail, George S. Patton's military star was at least partially born of this delightfully fraught set of fortuitous circumstances. The Punitive Expedition was composed of 2 cavalry brigades and a brigade of infantry, ultimately numbering over 10,000 men, augmented by the 1st Aero Squadron, equipped with a half-dozen rickety aircraft. Over nearly a year from March 1916 to February 1917, Pershing would lead his men some 400 miles into Mexico's almost incomparably rugged Sierra Madres. In his official duties, Patton performed a plethora of tasks, everything from ensuring the general was well fed, to assisting him with inspections, looking after the well-being of his horses, motor vehicles, troops, etc., and serving as a courier. Patton foresaw the difficult nature of the expedition, stating,
"I think that we will have much more of a party than many think, as Villa's men at Columbus fought well, and Mexico is very bad terrain for regular troops. There are no roads, no maps, and no water for the first 100 miles. If we can induce him to fight, it will be all right, but if he breaks up his force, it will be bad, especially if we have Carranza on our rear. They can't beat us, but they can kill a lot of us. Not me, though."
As Blackjack's efforts unfolded, he was unable to catch sight of Pancho Villa, much less catch him. Consequently, Pershing shifted his focus to targeting Villa's key lieutenants, with General Julio Cardenas, the leader of Villa's elite guard, Los Dorados, and a participant in the Columbus massacre, being of particular importance. Believed to be concealing himself near Rubio, Mexico, Patton implored Pershing for the chance to join the pursuit, and was temporarily assigned to Troop C of the 13th Cavalry. Informed that Cardenas might be at a ranch near San Miguelito, Patton and a detachment from Troop C set out in mid-April. While they didn't capture the general, they encountered his wife, baby, and uncle. In a letter to his father written on April 17th, Patton noted that,
"The uncle was a very brave man and nearly died before he would tell me anything."
Patton and his men had clearly tortured Cardenas' uncle in a failed attempt to extract the general's whereabouts. On May 14th, Pershing dispatched Patton on a foraging expedition to buy corn from Mexican farmers. Patton and his party of 10 soldiers, 2 civilian scouts, and 2 civilian drivers set out in 3 automobiles. They stopped in 2 villages and made the necessary purchases. Then Patton continued to Rubio, where he spotted a group of 60 very rough-looking Mexicans whom one of his scouts, an ex-Villista named E.L. Holmdahl, identified as associates of Villa and Cardenas. This suggested to Patton that Cardenas was nearby. Given that likelihood, Patton considered it reasonable to exceed his orders of buying corn and launch an assault on the general's hacienda, before word of Patton's presence slithered back to the general. The U.S. cavalrymen motored north to San Miguelito and the same hacienda at which Patton had previously encountered the general's family. About a mile and a half south of the house, the ground is lower than the house, and one cannot be seen until cresting the rise. Patton noted,
"As soon as I came over this, I made my car go at full speed and went on past the house, for men were skinning a cow in the front. One of these men ran to the house and at once returned and went on with his work. I stopped my car northwest of the house, and the other 2 cars stopped southwest of it. I jumped out, carrying my rifle in my left hand, and hurried around to the big arched door leading into the patio. I rounded the corner and walked about halfway to the gate. When I was 15 yards from the gate, 3 armed men dashed out on horseback and started around the southeast corner. So schooled was I not to shoot, that I merely drew my pistol and waited to see what happened. When they got to the corner, they saw my men coming that way and turned back, and all 3 shot at me. 1 bullet threw gravel on me. I fired back with my new ivory-handled pistol 5 times, and then my men came around the corner and started to shoot. I did not know who was in the house. There were a lot of windows only a few feet from our right side. Just as I got around the corner, 3 bullets hit about 7 feet from the ground and put adobe chips all over me.
Patton had deployed his small force carefully so that riflemen covered all exits from the house. He continued,
I reloaded my pistol and started back when I saw a man on a horse come right in front of me. I started to shoot at him, but remembered that Sheriff Dave Allison had always said to shoot at the horse of an escaping man. I did so and broke the horse's hip. He fell on his rider, and as it was only about 10 yards, we all hit him. He crumpled up.
A Villista who ran out of the hacienda very nearly galloped off through to the sanctuary of the vast wilderness, but Patton and some of his men sent a hail of bullets after him, and he too fell dead. Patton climbed onto the roof of the building to get a better look and see who else was in the hacienda. As he stepped out onto the dirt roof, it gave way, with Patton falling through, coming to a stop at the armpits and quickly struggling out of the hole. In the meantime, one of Patton's scouts, the ex-Villista Holmdahl, shot and killed another escaping Villista. He was wounded at 200 meters distance and raised his hand in surrender. As Holmdahl proceeded to make the detention, the man produced a pistol, fired at Holmdahl, and was immediately killed. During the entire adventure, Patton noted the 4 men who had been skinning the cow continued to go about their work, completely ignoring the rampage, apparently hoping to avoid being targeted. Patton now ordered the roundup of these 4, and he and 3 soldiers each seized one of them as a human shield while they searched the interior of the hacienda. The hate-narrowed eyes of Cardenas's mother and wife, who held her baby daughter in her arms, followed the men. Cautiously opening a heavy, locked wooden door, Patton found several wizened old women cowering in prayer. He could not help but think they were praying for their salvation and his destruction. In all, 3 Mexicans had been killed in the Battle of San Miguelito. One of the cow skinners identified one of those slain as Julio Cardenas himself, and the others as a Villista captain and private. Additionally, Cardenas's corpse had a silver spur and saber that the young cutthroat killer, George Patton, kept as souvenirs for years to come. Cardenas had been the last outlaw standing. Patton wounded him in the initial volley. Afterward, he was driven back into the courtyard by Patton's men's unrelenting, withering blitz. He managed to make his final attempt in life before being brought down by Holmdahl. An examination of his corpse revealed he had been wounded 4 times before his execution, and he had fired 35 bullets in this final, failed attempt to overcome the swarming Yanks. They attached the 3 corpses across the hoods of each of the detachment's 3 automobiles, like trophy tags, and hastened to leave. As they did so, a large party of Villista horsemen, numbering an approximate and eerie 60, galloped to the hacienda, hoping to catch Patton and his men and exact a terrible revenge. The vastly outnumbered Americans exchanged fire with the fiends, floored the pedals of America's first combat assault vehicles, and rumbled down the road to Rubio. As a precaution, Patton directed one of his men to cut the telegraph wires along the road to prevent word of the shootout from reaching the town before their arrival. After passing through at high speed, the party did not stop until it had reached Pershing's headquarters. There, Patton was mobbed by news correspondents who were starving for a story in what had become a long and monotonous Mexican sojourn, as dry as the surrounding desert. Headlines trumpeted Patton's name, and even better for the young officer's ever-hungry ego, official army dispatches mentioned him repeatedly. Patton was now a national hero, at least for a few weeks. In the longer term, the Punitive Expedition had more important consequences for him. Patton's automobile assault at San Miguelito was the first time a United States Army unit had been transported into battle by motorized vehicles. In his assault on the Cardenas hacienda, Patton, who would champion the tank in World War I and would be the foremost American exponent of mobile warfare in World War II, had more or less inadvertently pioneered the use of automobiles as the next evolution of mobilized warfare. Sadly, this prescient action in a dusty hacienda at San Miguelito proved to be the high point of the Punitive Expedition. Wanting to avoid a major international crisis, President Wilson ordered Pershing to withdraw to within 150 miles of the US-Mexican border, and from that point on, boredom set in. On May 18th, Patton recorded a typical day in his diary.
I did absolutely nothing but take a bath.
Ah well, such is life in the shadows. If you'd like more secret stories of cunning, endurance and iron resolve, hit the like and subscribe to ride along as we explore the secrets lurking in the shadows and echoing through the corridors of the past. And if you like more stories like this one, of George Patton's iconic introduction to war, click the link to learn the lessons of the brutal Loring Massacre, a true crime mystery in which renegade outlaws massacred a stagecoach carrying bullion in the arid Arizona heat. This tragedy set off a punitive campaign in which General George Crook outfoxed a deadly cunning foe over a series of catastrophic engagements, using sneaky asymmetric tactics that would be at home on 21st century battlefields. Welcome to the shadows and the past, where history meets mystery and the past is your present.